The work of historians is complex. We do much more than ask questions, research the evidence, gather our findings, and report conclusions. How historians decide what is evidence, how to select it, how to make it speak, is the subject of your historical thinking and historical methods classes. But at a very basic level, historians share the duties and responsibilities of all researchers. First duty is to get the facts right. Our second duty is to tell readers where these facts came from. To that end, you must cite the sources of the facts, ideas, or words that you use in your paper. Citing your sources is not inherently an academic practice, by the way. So commonly do people in everyday conversation repeat the sayings of others that specialists in language studies investigate this particular speech habit. Speakers' representations of others' words involve awareness of contexts distant from the setting of the conversation. And the speech technique of representing the words of others involves complex purposes and, on the listener's part, subtle interpretive schemes. So much of what we know about the world we learn only from what others have said. Conveying this knowledge as coming from a particular source gives us a chance to take a position in relation to other people's position in the world. There are at least 4 reasons to cite your sources in academia. To give credit, research is hard work. Doing it well can bring rewards, good grades, a degree, and later money and promotions. But no less important is recognition, the pride and prestige of seeing your name associated with the knowledge others value and use. In fact, for some researchers, that is the only reward. So when you cite the work of others, you give them the recognition they have earned. To reassure readers about the accuracy of your facts is the second reason to cite. Researchers cite sources to be fair to other researchers and earn their readers' trust. It is not enough to get the facts right. You must also tell readers the source of the facts so that they can judge their reliability and check them if they wish. Readers do not trust a source they do not know and cannot find. If they do not trust your sources, they will not trust your facts. And if they do not trust your facts, they will not trust your argument. You establish the first link in that chain of trust by citing your sources fully, accurately, and appropriately. Third, to show readers the research tradition that informs your work. Researchers cite sources whose data they use, but they also cite work that they extend, support, contradict, or correct. These citations help readers not only understand your specific project, but connect it to other research in your field. Fourth, to help readers follow or extend your research. Many readers use sources cited in a research paper not to check its reliability, but to pursue their own work. So your citations help others not only to follow your footsteps, but to strike out in new directions. Giving proper credit to the work and contributions of others strengthens your argument and assists others who want to build on your work. There is, of course, one chief ethical motivation behind these proper citations. That is, you must never appear to take credit for work that is not your own. Proper citation guards against the charge of plagiarism. Plagiarism is a charge that, if sustained, could mean for a professional writer an irreparably damaged reputation, or for a student writer a failing grade or even expulsion. Remember to not plead ignorance. To be sure, what looks like plagiarism is often just honest ignorance of how to use and cite sources. Some students sincerely believe that they don't have to cite material downloaded from the web because it's free and publicly available. They are wrong. Others defend themselves by claiming they didn't intend to mislead. The problem is that we read words, not minds. So think of plagiarism not as an intended act, but as a perceived one. Here's the best way to think about this. If the author of the source you borrowed from were to read your paper, would they recognize any of it as theirs, including paraphrases and summaries, or even general ideas or methods from their original work? If so, you must cite those borrowings. So, what is plagiarism? Students know they cheat when, say, they submit as their own work papers bought online. Most also know they cheat when they pass off as their own long passages copied directly from their sources. For those cases, there's nothing to say beyond don't. But many inexperienced researchers fail to realize that they risk being charged with plagiarism even if they were not intentionally dishonest, but only misinformed or careless. You run that risk when you do any of the following. You quote, paraphrase, or summarize a source, but fail to cite it. You use ideas or methods from a source, but fail to cite them. You use the exact words of a source and you do cite it, but you fail to put those words in quotation marks or in a block quotation. You paraphrase a source and cite it, but paraphrase it too closely. Here's a list of some serious and some less serious forms of plagiarism. Often those who intentionally plagiarize have poor time management skills and do not think they will get caught. I am now going to share some additional rules of thumb for proper quotations and paraphrases. First, signal every quotation, even when you cite its source, and quote accurately. Even if you cite the source, readers must know exactly which words are yours and which you quote. Accurate quotation is crucial to the scholarly enterprise, so you must use only reliable, relevant sources, transcribe words exactly as they are in the original. For the rules on modifying quotations, please consult Kate Turabian's Manual for Writers. The ethics of scholarship also require that whenever you quote words or rely on tables, graphics, or data from another source, you clearly indicate what you borrowed and from where, using the appropriate citation style. If you do not, you risk a charge of plagiarism. But even if you do cite a source accurately, you still risk a charge of plagiarism if you use the exact words of the source but fail to identify them as a quotation. You paraphrase appropriately when you represent an idea in your own words more clearly or pointedly than the source does. But readers will think that you plagiarize if they can match your words and phrasing with those of your source. To avoid seeming to plagiarize, read the passage, look away, think about it for a moment, then still looking away, paraphrase it in your own words. Then check whether you can run your finger along your sentence and find synonyms for the same ideas in the same order in your source. If you can, try again. Now, this rule is more complicated than it seems, because few ideas are entirely new. Readers don't expect you to cite a source for the idea that the earth is round. But they do expect you to cite a source for an idea when, first, it is associated with a specific person, and second, it is new enough not to be part of a field's common knowledge. Widely known facts are considered to be common knowledge and do not need to be cited. And in order to be considered common knowledge, a fact must meet 3 criteria. A, you must be able to find the same information in numerous other sources. Second, you think it is information your audience should already know. And 3, a person could easily find the information with a general reference book. For example, psychologists claim that we think and feel in different parts of our brains. No knowledgeable reader would expect you to cite a source for that idea because it's so familiar that no one would think you are implying it is yours. On the other hand, some psychologists argue that emotions are crucial to rational decision-making. That idea is so new and tied to particular researchers that you'd have to cite them. To fulfill the requirements of citation, you need to know when to include a source citation in your paper and what information about the source to include. Briefly, you should always provide a citation in the following situations. First, when you quote exact words from a source. Second, when you paraphrase ideas that are associated with a specific source, even if you don't quote exact words from it. Third, when you use any ideas, data, or methods attributable to any source you consulted. And fourth, you may also use citations to point readers to sources that are relevant to a particular portion of your argument, but not quoted or paraphrased. Such citations demonstrate that you are familiar with these sources, even if they present claims at odds with your own. Over the long tradition of citing sources, as researchers in different fields began to write in different ways, they also developed distinctive ways of citing and documenting their sources. When citation methods became standardized, researchers had to choose from not just one or two standards, but many. Citation styles differ in the elements included and in the format of these elements, but they have the same aim: to give readers the information they need to identify and find a source. For most sources, including books, articles, and other written material, that information must answer these questions. Who wrote, edited, or translated the text? Sometimes all three. In other words, who created it? What data identify the text? This includes the title and subtitle of the work, volume number, edition number, or other identifying information, and page numbers or other locating information if the reference is to a specific part of a larger text. Who published the text and in what context? This includes the name of the publisher, journal, or other entity responsible for making the text available, and in some cases, the title of any collection or series in which the work appears. When was the text published? This will consist of a year of publication, sometimes a season, month, or specific day, sometimes even a time. Where can the text be found? Most printed sources can be found in a library or bookstore. Information that does not and should not be mentioned in a citation in the field of history. For a source that is only available online, for instance, a link to the work in the form of URL, or on rare occasions the name of a commercial database, will help readers find it. For a physical document from a one-of-a-kind collection, a primary source say, data will include the place where the collection is housed. Details vary for other types of sources, such as sound and video recordings, but they answer the same 5 questions. Who was responsible for creating the source? What title or other data identify it? Who published it? When? Where can it be found? Your readers will expect you to use the citation style appropriate to their particular field, not just because they are familiar with the style, but because you show them that you understand their values and practices when you use it. The details may seem trivial. Quotation marks or italics, capitals or lowercase, periods or commas, or parentheses and colons. But if you do not get these small matters right, at least some of your readers will question whether they can trust you on the bigger ones. Fortunately, you don't have to memorize all these details. Instead, you can learn the forms of the citation you use most so that you do not need to look them up repeatedly. The latest citation management tools can help, especially for more common source types. For sources that are less common or have unusual elements, and for double-checking a final draft, you should consult a book like Kate Turabian's Manual for Writers of Research Papers, Theses, and Dissertations, Chicago style for students and researchers. You will go into further detail on how to incorporate quotations into your writing properly, when and how to paraphrase your sources effectively, and how to properly cite your materials in the style of your discipline, Chicago Manual of Style, when you complete your historical thinking and writing classes. Now, I ask that you click the link below to complete a practice quiz in some of the things you learned here. This is not an assessment. We merely want to see whether students enter the coursework better prepared with the completion of our video modules. Thank you for taking the time, and we look forward to seeing you in class.